We have big news. We have exciting news for you. Tell them what it is, Serena.
We are super excited to announce that we are starting our first membership this January 2024.
Yay! Membership.
So we're excited to let you know that we will be hosting a monthly membership where when you join, you will be
with us live in a Zoom room once a month for a workshop like we just hosted. It's going to be a workshop like that, one topic each month, a different topic. You might even help us come up with the following month's topic from inside our membership. Super excited to meet you. It was so fun meeting a few of you in our inaugural workshop. So we're really looking forward to that.
And when you are a member, you will also be receiving a monthly newsletter where I'm going to be a little more intimate and I'll be sharing the things that are working and the things that aren't working for me.
Yeah, like taking a tool that you've learned from the podcast and how you're implementing it and how well that worked, or maybe if it didn't work. And then Amma can put in my 2 bits worth. We'll see how that goes. But a membership newsletter and a membership live Zoom room workshop starting in January 2024. Can sign up through our Patreon link in the show notes, yeah?
Yes, everything will be in the show notes, and we can't wait to see you there, listeners.
We can't wait. Yay!
Hey mamas, I'm super excited for you to tune into this week's episode because this is the first person I've ever met that is not doing sleep training and is advocating for us mamas who do have a family bed or that do nurse to sleep or that do quote unquote enable those bad habits of getting them to sleep. And I've never seen work like the work that Aileen does. So I'm excited for you to meet her and for her to debunk some myths that you have about sleeping. And it's a great convo. So thanks for tuning in. And shall we dive into it?
Hey, Mama. Welcome to the Nurturing Parent Podcast. Do you want to end the constant battles for bath time? Do you find yourself emotionally exhausted at the end of the day? Do you wake up with big hopes for a smooth day of fun with your little ones, only to face an early morning meltdown because you peeled their banana the wrong way?
Silly you.
Silly you.
Hey, I'm Serena. I'm a mama of 2 little ones, and as a new mama, I constantly questioned myself. I wanted to make sure I was raising respectful kids while also building a strong bond with them. But I discovered that I had to unlearn my ideas that punishment was the way. With Lisa's encouragement, I've been practicing a respectful and gentle parenting approach, which is strengthening our bond as a family.
And hi, I'm Lisa. Amma means grandmother in Icelandic. I am a mama and an amma. And I have over 40 years of experience in childcare and parent coaching. And I am so excited to share the knowledge I've gained over these years with you.
Together in this podcast, each week we will explore some easy to implement skills you can add to your parenting tool belt to help you create a happy, thriving family. Today, we are excited to introduce you to our next guest here on the Nurturing Parent Podcast, Aileen Dunbar. Aileen hails from Vaughan, Ontario, Canada, and is the mother of 2, a 6 and a 3-year-old, and is a secondary school teacher with 15 years experience. She holds a Bachelor's of Education and a Bachelor's of Science, and she also completed the certificate program in self-regulation parenting with Dr. Stuart Shankner and is a contributing writer for the Natural Parent magazine. The exciting reason we've invited her to join us here on the Nurturing Parent is that in 2021, Aileen became a certified baby-led sleep and well-being specialist. Aileen's goal in her gentle sleep support work is to provide the guidance and resources needed to support parents to understand the root cause of any sleep issues their children may be experiencing. Working with the parents, she co-creates a sleep plan that works for everyone, keeping the attachment relationship between parent and child at the forefront. Aileen never uses any form of what is commonly known as sleep training. She guides parents instead in how to make parent-led changes while supporting a child's emotional needs. Aileen knows firsthand what it's like to feel overwhelmed by societal pressures put on new parents when it comes to sleep. Her top goal is to empower parents and to relieve any stress they may have about their child's sleep so that they can focus on being the best parent they can be. Welcome, Aileen, and thank you so much for joining us on our show.
Thank you so much for having me.
So exciting. I have been wanting to have a sleep expert with us for a long time. So yay, thank you so much. And I love that you're from Canada.
Yes.
So am I.
Yeah. Thank you both. I really feel like our messages align really well with each other in terms of being a nurturing parent with this approach. So thank you so much for having me on the show.
Yay, welcome.
So I'm happy we found you because I feel like everything that talks about sleep is with the sleep training.
So just to clarify, even before we start what we thought we were, where we thought we were going to start, like what does that term sleep training mean? Just in a compact, give us a little bit for our listeners.
Okay, so I guess there's sort of different definitions of what it means. What I think of it as meaning in the more traditional sense, and I don't do sleep training, is a specific telling parents to go against their instincts when it comes to their child's sleep, like giving them a really set plan. There's a range of what it could look like. Like there's ones that are more considered a little more gentle. There's one like cry it out, which is where you just leave your baby to fully cry themselves to sleep. There's other ones that are considered more gentle, but overall they still are telling parents to not respond to their child and to go against their instincts. Like whether it be like timed checks is another example, like leave them for 3 minutes and then you can pick them up, which yes, maybe is viewed as less intense as cry it out, but you're still telling parents to like not follow their instincts when it comes to responding to their child. So to me, that is what sleep training involves.
Okay, thank you.
It's not what we do.
And just to clarify, listener, this is not what we support. Aileen is here to teach us about a much more gentler and nurturing approach. So what made you decide to become a certified sleep-led sleep and well-being specialist? That's quite a handle.
Yes. So I would say the journey really began when I first became a mother. So I really felt so much pressure that I was supposed, as we were saying, like as Serena was sort of saying, like to sleep train, that in order for your child to sleep well, you need to teach them how to sleep. And I felt all this pressure to do so. And also that he, for example, like from reading all these different websites and things, that he wasn't getting enough sleep because he wasn't sleeping as much as the books recommended, for example. Other things where he should be want to sleep in his crib for long stretches, but he wasn't enjoying sleeping in his crib. And I found that he would sleep better in my arms, for example, but I felt like I was setting up a bad habit by doing so, even though I enjoyed it. I still felt like there's something wrong with it.
Right. But like our baby should sleep better away from us.
Yeah, which goes against attachment.
Does not work in my brain.
No. When you look at all these websites and things, it's how you're made to feel.
Yeah.
But eventually I came across the baby-led sleep approach, which doesn't use any form of sleep training and empowers parents to use their instincts. And so it means you can still make changes if something's no longer working for you. Like let's say you're breastfeeding your baby to sleep, which is totally natural, normal if it's working for you. But let's say you're at a point where you don't want to do it anymore. You can make a change in a gentle, supported way to your baby's sleep, but without ever leaving them to cry or without ever going against what feels right for you. So I found this approach and I took a course with Lauren Weber, who's the creator of the baby-led sleep approach. And this really helped empower me to believe that following my instincts when it came to my son's sleep was perfectly fine. And I didn't need to stress out as much about it. Yeah. But then I didn't become certified till I had my daughter 3 years later. I decided that I was feeling so much less stressed about her sleep when I had her. And then I thought, actually, I want to take this a step further and actually become certified in this particular approach so that I can work with families that don't want to use any form of sleep training and empower them to also follow their instincts.
Yeah,
that was it.
Thank goodness. Just a couple of quick anecdotes, which Emma likes to throw in to our conversations. When my mom had her first baby, 1956, she was told by the doctor, feed your baby every 4 hours, like by the clock. My baby, 37 years ago in 1985, ate every 2 hours. So like my mama had to put this baby, her firstborn, in the crib, in the room. And then she told me this story about how,
And she felt terrible about it later, obviously, but she, she was doing what the doctor had said. The doctor had said, she was standing in the doorway, listening to her baby cry and looking at her watch and just like wanting so badly to go in there. And I'm sharing this story because that's how far we've been pushed away from our instinctual knowing. Yeah. She wanted to go in and pick up that baby and nurse that baby and snuggle and comfort that baby. But we've been pushed to not trust our instincts. So thank you for the work that you're doing, Aileen.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, it's sad that we're at this point where we need to just tell parents to follow their instincts. But yeah, you're right. I think we really have moved away from that. So that's one of the really big reasons that I wanted to become certified, because I don't want other parents to feel that way. And I want them to feel like they know what's best for their baby and they follow their instincts.
I think the sleep training has become so popular because of having a household where both parents have to work and just creating the schedule so that everything, I guess, accommodate the parents.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I agree. It is really hard. Yeah. Especially in like the States. I know you guys don't have much maternity leave, for example. So that would make it even harder. Like I'm not judging anyone who does sleep train. It's just, yeah, it's a method that I wanted to provide like an alternative approach so that people don't feel like they have to do it. I know we're living in a society that really doesn't support parents enough. So I totally understand it's really tough.
Yeah. So not going into the mom guilt place.
Yeah.
But I love what you just said about, wanting to offer something different and to let parents know that there is something different on offer. And, just a quick plug to say that Aileen is available worldwide because of the internet. Right?
Yes.
Yeah, we'll get to how you can contact her later at the end of the episode. But just so you know, parents, there is another way. And if you want to explore that other way more deeply, you can certainly contact Aileen.
Thank you.
Question number 2. Do you specialize working with parents of children of any particular ages?
I specialize with both babies and toddlers, and even up to the preschooler stage. Obviously, like what I would do with the particular family would differ based on the age of the child, but I can give you like a couple of examples based on the different ages. So for example, if I was working with the newborn stage, we would more be looking at setting realistic expectations for infant sleep in terms of like that night wakings are normal. Yeah, just in terms of how to best support their sleep, to set those good sleep foundations, things you can do.
Before you go on, can you tell us a little more about why night wakings are normal? Because I love to give parents a little bit of the why behind.
Yes, night wakings actually serve as a protective mechanism for the baby. We actually don't want babies to sleep too deeply, because there is a link between like babies sleeping more deeply and the risk of SIDS, for example. So we actually want babies to wake up overnight. And also for things like breastfeeding, to keep up the mother's supply if the baby needs to feed frequently throughout the night. Formula as well. It's important that babies are getting enough nutrition throughout the night. But also technically speaking, we also even wait when we say sleeping through the night, even adults, we wake up at night, like at the end of every sleep cycle, we wake up. And if we don't have a need to be met, like if we don't need to go to the washroom or have water or something like that, we just go back to sleep. So it's really an inaccurate thing to say sleeping through the night. Because so some babies, when they wake up, like let's say they don't have a particular need to be met, they're not hungry, they're not looking for comfort, etc. They might just go right back to sleep. But if they wake up and they do have a need to be met, then they will signal for you. And so to tie it back to sleep training, when you sleep train, your baby might still just be waking up just as much as a baby that hasn't been slept trained. It's just they've sort of learned to not signal for you. So
yeah, and I like that term, signal for you. When I had my baby as a newborn and sleeping beside me, I was so tuned in to her, especially in those first few days. Did you guys experience this where it was like every tiny sound was like, mama's alert, mama's on alert, right? And I remember, she would just have to like move her head from side to side, and that indicated that she was rooting, right? She was looking for her food. And so I would pull her in and feed her. And when obviously if they're in a different room, or even, further away from you, you're not going to hear those first signals, which is fine. But if they're down the hall, you're not going to hear any signal until they're full on crying, right? I mean, I know people are using baby monitors now, so maybe they're catching it a bit sooner. But I also have to throw in that the first time I went to Iceland and I visited with a friend who was very much involved in the early child care movement there, and actually a spearhead. She created a beautiful international parenting conference. We sat down together, and of course we started talking shop because we're both in early learning work. And she said, so tell me one thing, what we see on the movies, that come out of America, North America, I guess. She's like, why do people put their young babies down the hall in a different room behind a closed door? Like, that does not make any sense to me, she said. And so in that moment, I was like, well, I never did. And it doesn't make sense to me either, but I get where you're coming from. She's like, in all the movies, it's like the child is put down the hall behind closed doors. She said, it doesn't make sense to us here in Iceland. And so I want to point out to our listeners too, this is not a universal thing, right? It's that we think that they should go to sleep in their own room, in their own crib, far away from us. That's not normal. That's actually a smaller percentage of the population on the planet than anything, right?
Yeah, it's really a Western culture.
Very much the Western culture, yeah. And I mean, Iceland is Western culture too. So some of the European countries are, Finland, I'm sure, and Sweden, like they're so aware of the early years and the importance of them. So the Nordic countries, they got it going on. I wanted to point that out too, because it's not actually normal.
No.
Right? We think it's normal because that's what's been fed to us.
Yeah, it goes against what's really biologically appropriate for babies. Like, yeah, they I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Gordon Neufeld. We learned a lot about him in sleep approach, and he talks about how babies in the first year of life attach through their senses. So like what you're saying, if you're separated, like separation to them triggers them to feel more alarmed. So their desire is to be as close as possible to their caregiver, even at sleeping times. So that's why, for safety also, just to like pick up on any signals as you're saying, but also like their desire to be close to us is innate.
Mm-hmm.
So as possible.
I always like to point out also on the podcast how we are mammals. We forget that we're part of the animal kingdom, but we are mammals. And my understanding, Aileen, is that human infants are the most in need of being cared for and taken care of by our parents, because we can't, like a lot of other mammals, get up and run away directly after birth, like, goats or sheep or cats or dogs or whatever. No, maybe cats and dogs can't quite run around when they're first born, but we also don't get hid away in a cave or a den till it's safe to come out, so we are more in need of that kind of protection. And that's also a mammalian instinct, right? Is that need for protection.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, because it triggers that like fight or flight response when they're away from their caregiver.
Mm-hmm. And I love that you said they connect through their senses.
Yes.
So the sense of smell, obviously the sense of touch, sense of sight. And I've pointed out before that visual from a baby in your arms to your eye, to your face, is how much a newborn can actually see, the distance a newborn can see.
Yes.
That's really cool. And of course, hearing. Nice. I love knowing that. Oh, and okay, so then I interrupted. And so that was for a newborn.
Oh, yes.
And then
Right. Okay. Yeah.
I will do this. I do this just because I want to go deeper with you.
Yes,
I want to go
that's
deeper.
great. So for newborn, we might look more at like simple things like implementing a simple routine at the beginning, maybe figuring out baby's tired cues. As another really key part of this approach is, as opposed to following like a strict schedule, we emphasize that it's more important to follow like the baby's cues in terms of when you'd want to put them to sleep, as opposed to like, oh, because I don't know if you've heard of like there's specific like wake windows for babies that you find online, but that obviously isn't the case. Like not every single like 3-month-old will follow this specific wake window. So it's better to look at their particular tired cues to figure out when to put them to sleep. So
you give us some examples of tired cues in a newborn?
Oh, sure. Well, there's like early tired cues and late tired cues, but yeah, it can differ for different babies, but some examples might be like rubbing their eyes or like averting their gaze away from you, getting a little more fussy or clingy. Those are a couple examples.
Nice, thanks.
My daughter, she used to get like red eyebrows.
Yeah, that's another common one, actually. Yeah.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, each baby, as you said, like that's where it's important to cue into their unique ones, because each baby's like a little bit different. But if you really kind of observe them for a little while and figure out their tired cues, that would be, to me, that's like one of the most important things you can do in the beginning stages.
Nice. Like their eyes get droopier, they get squirmier sometimes. Yeah, nice. Oh, I love that.
And then when I work with parents with older babies, then I wouldn't really be more focused on making changes when the babies are little, but as they get older, like let's say I was mentioning earlier, like let's say a certain way of putting the baby to sleep is no longer working. Like a common one is bouncing the baby to sleep. I remember I did this with my son and daughter, but at a certain point they get too heavy and it becomes really challenging. So that's a common thing that parents sometimes want to change. Like we call it a parent-led change. But you can do it in a way that's supportive of their emotions. And one key way of doing this is like, if you add in more sleep, we call them sleep associations, like bouncing to sleep would be like the main sleep association they've come to rely upon. But a way of like making a change, like let's say you'd rather just like pat them to sleep or shush them to sleep or something, you add in those extra sleep associations along with the bouncing, so that eventually it becomes easier to get rid of that sleep association that you're trying to change. So those are things I can work with parents on making a change.
I know with one of my grandsons, going from bouncing him standing up in our arms, we went to sitting on the edge of the bed and bouncing.
Oh,
so it didn't take quite so much strength and muscle, you know, to do that. And then it was an easier transition to then, because now I'm sitting on the edge of the bed and then laying him down. So that's, I guess, what we were doing there, just instinctively. But
and yeah, it's all about, as you're saying, like you're following your instincts. Like, yeah, if I recommend a certain method, I wouldn't say like, just do this for 2 minutes. And it's never like a set timer of something. It's all about, I'm giving you these suggestions, but I want to empower the parents to follow them in the way that works best for them. And if they feel like, okay, it's too much for the baby, like they're not ready for this, you can do it as gently as you want. Like I would never tell a parent, like you have to follow this exact plan to make a change.
Right. And so in the title of what you're the specialist of child-led sleep, and then, so there's that, and I'm guessing that there's cues that happen as a child grows, as an infant grows and becomes a toddler and all, you know, into preschool years, like you say. So there's child-led sleep, but then you also commented just there on parent-led changes, like when they're getting too heavy to hold. And you need to change that for your own well-being, then, or you need some more sleep, or you need a bit more time in the evenings, or those kinds of things, I'm guessing would be parent-led.
The person that developed it, Lauren Weber, I remember her saying she would have called it dyad sleep, because it is, we call it baby-led sleep, but as you said, it doesn't mean like the baby's in charge the whole time. Like as they get older, it's really about the relationship between the two. And if something's no longer working, like the baby might love to always be nursed to sleep, but if that's no longer working for you and you're feeling frustrated, then it's more than okay to make that change in a gentle and supported way. And as you're saying, as they enter the toddler years, it really actually becomes important. This relates to that episode I listened that you guys did about setting boundaries and limits. It's actually important to set boundaries and limits with them for them to feel safe and secure. So showing them that you're going to take the lead in terms of like the bedtime routines, things like that, is actually important at that stage. So it really becomes more about that as they get into the toddler years. So that's how it kind of shifts from how I support parents in the newborn stage to the toddler stage.
Right. Cool. Thank you. So then we'd want to jump into what can you share with our listeners today that can reassure them about their infants and child sleep patterns. Because I know for sure, and Serena and I have talked about this before, there's a lot of misunderstandings. There's a lot of myths, I think you called them. So can you give us, our listeners, some of those good information pieces? That would be wonderful.
Absolutely. I think one of the ones I was going to talk about, we kind of already covered, was that it's normal for babies to wake at night, but I feel like we addressed that one already. Another really common one is that we kind of talked about this a bit as well, but just to go into it more detail, that you're creating bad habits by supporting your baby to sleep.
That when parents are told they're creating bad habits by supporting their babies to sleep, I think that's a really pivotal one. I mean, Serena, you've talked about that, where you kind of felt shamed because you were practicing the family bed. You have your babies in bed with you, right?
Yeah, I always got, in Spanish, it's mal acostumbrado. So everybody would always say to me that I'm mal acostumbrando my kids to be in the bed with me, to breastfeed them to sleep. And yep, I was doing all the quote unquote bad habits with my kids to get them to sleep.
Yeah.
And a lot of parents would then shy away from that, right? Somehow Serena had the fortitude to stick with her instincts. But go ahead, Aileen, what have you got to say for that?
Yes, I also, as I was mentioning, why I felt the same way. Like I still support, like I still even lie down with, I used to like bounce my daughter to sleep, then rock her to sleep, etc. Like she's 3 now, and I also still am supporting her to sleep. And yeah, it relates back to the whole attachment piece. Like it's perfectly developmentally normal that it's bedtime essentially for children represents a long period of separation. So anything you can do to make them feel more attached before they go to sleep goes a long way. So for example, anything you're doing like bouncing, rocking, lying with them, etc., is a great way to support those needs. I also mentioned Dr. Gordon Neufeld previously, that babies, as I was saying, seek more connection when they are facing an imminent separation, such as bedtime. So helping them to go to sleep is a great way to help them feel more attached to their caregiver before the separation. But as we were also mentioning,
that right there is, I need a drink of water. I need to go pee. I need another drink of water. Like that repetitive that drives parents crazy. It's like they keep getting up, they keep getting up, they keep getting up, they keep checking back in. And so what you just said from Dr. Gordon Neufeld is, if it's them needing to really make sure that attachment is there, that connection is there before they go into that time of separation during sleep. Like we don't think of it in our adult brain as separation. You're just going to sleep in your bed now and I'll see you in the morning. But it is actually on a mammal level, on an instinctual level, it's a time of separation. That's so cool. That's so cool to know that. For the parents there, is if their child is doing that, their toddler or their preschooler is wanting more, getting up and wanting more, it's like, okay, how can you feed that connection before you expect sleep, right? Thank you.
No problem. And I think another aspect that parents are made to feel, I've read before that if you put your baby to sleep a certain way, they're always going to expect that same way to go back to sleep. Like I've seen that on websites, like that's a way of making parents worry about that. Relating back to that whole concept of that it's normal for babies to wake up at night, then to me that shows that's not the reason why they're waking. It's not that you're like breastfeeding them to sleep or supporting them to sleep. That's not the reason that they're waking at night. It's just normal for babies to wake at night. So kind of dispelling that whole myth as well.
Yeah.
Another, that all babies of a certain age should follow a specific schedule, which I kind of also mentioned as well previously. I remember reading, if you even Google like schedule for a 6-month-old, you'll get like a very direct schedule, like babies should wake up at this time, have their first nap at this time, etc. But as I was mentioning previously, I think it's better to tune into their tired cues, as opposed to, because that would cause stress for the parents too. If they think, okay, my baby needs to have a nap by 10 a.m. So then they're trying to get their baby to sleep, and they're getting stressed and frustrated because the baby's not actually tired enough to go to sleep, and or overtired. Yeah, same idea. So then that just leads to stress, frustration. Then the baby picks up on that, and that might even make it harder for them to go to sleep. So it's like a whole cycle. So that's why I think it's not ideal to feel like you have to follow this strict schedule. Like you can have kind of an idea of when they'll sleep, if that helps you. But overall, I think it's best to tune into the baby's cues to figure out when to put them to sleep.
100%. Yeah.
Can I ask you, you had mentioned in the beginning that your son, according to the books or whatever, he wasn't getting enough sleep. So what helped you with that?
Well, I think it was when I found, first of all, if I was able to sort of tune into my instincts, which sort of similar to you, I think we have those instincts. Like when you said, even though you felt this shame from others, like just being like, but no, I think if he weren't getting enough sleep, I'm sure he'd be really like upset and not playing and things like that, not happy. I could just tell that I did sometimes let those like thoughts come into my mind, but overall I was able, as I got more experience, as he got older, and also as I found the baby-led sleep program, I realized every baby's different, and I could tell that he was getting the sleep he needs. But yes, it did take some time to feel that way for sure.
Yeah, it was just you noticing that he was getting enough for himself, and that was sufficient. Okay.
And I think I also had a friend who were similar, like we both had like, we call them in the approach like lower sleep needs babies. Her child was similar to my son in that he also wasn't getting as much sleep as what they said. So I think also having like other parents, it can be like a good thing or a bad thing sometimes to have other parents to talk to, but you find sort of a like-minded parent to talk with, it can help as well.
So is there a parameter of like for that first 3 months? I don't know what age your son was when you were experiencing that concern, but 12 hours a night or from 10 hours a night to 15 hours, like, is there a parameter that you are aware of?
There is a really wide range. Like there was a study done even for newborns that showed some newborns only get 9 hours of sleep, and that's fine for their needs, and others need to get closer to 20. Wow. So there's like, I think when they do these recommendations, it's like they look at the average of what's needed, which I think for newborns is for like the 0 to 3 month stage, I believe it's 14 to 17 hours is what's like the average. It's just an average. So your baby could either be like an outlier to that, like they could either need less sleep than that or more sleep than that. And the key way to know, as I was saying, is just if your baby seems like well rested and they're playing, things like that, you can assume that they're getting the amount of sleep they need. So sometimes all these data can almost be overwhelming for parents and just cause them stress.
So overwhelming.
Yes, you have to count the poops, you have to count the times that they eat, how much time in between that they eat, and how many hours that they're sleeping, how many naps, how many hours each nap. Too many.
Oh my gosh. That's way too much information. When we're able to tune into our instincts and follow our baby's cues for hunger, for sleep, for my diapers wet or dirty, like for all the cue. And I mean, some people learn to feel the cues of needing to eliminate, and they don't even use diapers. So there's all the cues that are possible, right? And that's really beautiful. Instead of overwhelming your brains with all the stuff you should know or you should be doing or your baby should be doing, like, no.
Yeah, I think these guidelines, it can help to kind of like see what's the average, but overall, as you said, like looking at the overall cues, I think is the most important thing.
So cool. I love that.
Oh, another one that I wanted to talk about is the whole myth that you need to teach your baby to self-soothe, that it's something that you need to teach them. So I just wanted to reference where this term actually comes from. It actually comes from a study on infant sleep done by Dr. Tom Anders, in which he determined there was 2 key ways that babies respond to their own awakening. So he labeled them as either being self-soothers, which is where this term comes from. That meant that when they woke up, they were just able to put themselves back to sleep. Or they're what he called signalers. And those are babies that when they awoke, they signal to their parents to help them go back to sleep. So that's what that term actually came from.
These are one and other babies are another.
Yeah. That according to the study that he did. Yes.
So that term, you need to teach your baby to self-soothe, is just the term self-soothe taken completely out of context.
Yes. And I think even the person who wrote the study themselves came out and said, that's not what I wasn't saying you need to teach babies to do this. Like he's come out against it and said, like, that's not what I meant.
Wow.
Oh, I'm so glad to learn that piece.
Yes.
Thank you. Because self-soothing, teaching self, like what?
So just another part with this study was that he found that this ability to self-soothe like did develop over time without parents needing to intervene anyways. So that represents to me that you don't need to teach your baby to self-soothe. It's just over time, this will naturally develop as long as it's actually better to like respond consistently and warmly to your baby. And over time, that skill will develop. And actually the way that self-soothing is now used today, it's really, what they really mean is self-regulation, which babies don't actually have the ability to do yet in terms of their brain development. They need to co-regulate, like when they're in a stressed out state, they actually need a warm, responsive caregiver to help them downregulate to be calm. So in leaving our baby to just cry themselves to sleep, they're not actually learning to self-regulate. They've just cried themselves to sleep. That's not actually teaching them to self-soothe.
No, thank you. That part. This part of the conversation about babies going to sleep always makes me really sad to know that there are babies who are left in a room alone and just crying. Yeah. Being the lullaby singer that I am, it's like, just hold your babies. All right.
I think those were the main ones I wanted to talk about in terms of the myths. I believe I went through all those ones.
Yeah, beautiful. Some very powerful myths there to debunk. Can you give our listeners some examples of how you would support them in making changes, or support them in what sleep challenges that they're having? What kinds of things do you do when you work with parents?
For sure. So we mentioned earlier the whole, like, let's say they want to make a change. We heard already talked about that example of if you want to make a change to how you put your baby to sleep, I would recommend like adding in even more sleep associations so that over time you can help them adjust from that particular sleep association to a different one. But another key one I've helped parents with is helping, not that you need to do this, but it's not for you, but let's say a parent would like for their baby to sleep more in their crib as opposed to contact napping. Contact napping is like, I did this a lot with my son and daughter and I loved it. So I didn't feel the need to make a change, but I know for some parents, eventually you might want to make that change of like getting your baby to sleep more in the crib. I've worked with parents on that. So we can do things like, an example would be you want to really create positive associations with the crib. So letting them like play in the crib during the day, like they release endorphins in the crib and that can help them have positive associations with it. But also I mentioned before, this relates back to the concept of babies attaching through their senses. We can work with that concept. Like for example, sleeping on their crib sheets for a few nights, they smell like you, or spilling breast milk on them if you're breastfeeding, so that even when they're asleep in the crib, we talked about like the sense of smell, they still can feel attached to you even when in the crib. So
that's beautiful.
With the toddler stages, you were mentioning before, the whole like, can I get a drink of water? Those things, we call those like toddler bedtime battles. Sometimes what helps with that is like you see all the things that they ask for before they go to bed, and you make like a list, and this is like the bedtime chart or routine. So you want to show them as the parent that you're taking the lead so that they can feel more securely attached. You can make a list like, we're going to read 2 books, drink of water, pajamas, like, but you have the list that you follow with them. So you're taking into consideration their needs, but you're showing them like, I'm the parent, I know what you need, but this is what we're going to follow. And that tends to lead to less bedtime battles. Like they know like this is the plan. They're going to stop trying to do things to sort of prolong the routine. So I've worked with parents on that.
Nice. Yeah, we did a whole episode, Serena and I, on the importance of bedtime routines and making them consistent every night and doing them in the same order. And it helps with the circadian rhythm, right? Like it helps our brains and our bodies start slowing down and knowing that sleep is coming, right? Yeah, cool.
Yeah, signals to the body to sleep. It's important. Yeah, because it's actually good for us too to have routines like that. If adults are having problems falling asleep, it actually also helps us if we have sort of a set routine, like you were saying, to signal the body to sleep. Yeah, so those are a few examples of the different challenges, or things like, I don't know if you've heard of things like false starts or split nights. So false starts when a baby wakes up approximately like after you put them down to sleep for the night, they wake up about 40 minutes after that. And I know parents can find that very challenging. So something that often helps with that is looking at the overall amount of sleep they're getting, or if the baby, things like if the baby's overtired, that can lead to that, or undertired. So sometimes you don't have to make a specific change to the sleep. You can just look at the overall sleep schedule and make a few adjustments here and there, and that can actually lead to less disrupted nights. Because yes, it's normal for babies to wake up overnight, but that doesn't mean we can't. There is sleep science that we can make adjustments to that can help, like reduce night wakings. Yeah. So
I know for me, even if I get overtired, I'll go to bed, I'll be just about asleep, and then I can actually feel my brain go ping.
Yeah.
And I'm like, darn it. I missed my sleep window.
Yes. Yeah, that's true.
And then it can take a long time for me to fall asleep. So yeah, that's really good to know. All right. So you offered to do a Q&A, Aileen, and I'm so excited to say that the same day that we were making our notes for today, we got a question from a listener named Alexa, who asks, this is what she said. I often lay with my 4-year-old until she falls asleep, but I think she got used to that. And now her falling asleep in her own bed has been a struggle because I don't want her to cry herself to sleep. How can I find a solution that doesn't make me feel like I'm not there for her?
Yes. First of all, thank you so much for the question, Alexa. So this ties in really well to the concept of there's a wide range in between like cried out versus waited out. So yeah, you never have to, as you know from this overall podcast, I don't believe in crying it out at all. But you also don't have to wait, like you don't have to not do anything ever. Like if something's not working for you anymore, your family, of course, you can make a change in a gentle and supportive way. But as we've mentioned, it is perfectly normal. Me and Serena were both talking about, and Lisa as well, like how it's normal to lie with your child to sleep. So it kind of sounds to me a little bit like maybe you're feeling like it's a bad, I'm not sure, but it kind of sounds like you're feeling like maybe it's a bad habit or you shouldn't be. So if you're still enjoying doing this, I say keep doing it. That being said, yes, if you want to make a change, you no longer want to lie with her to sleep, you could move away from it in a gentle way, but maybe still keep her in the room with you, but you could have like a floor bed beside you, for example. So that way it could be easier for you to support her back to sleep in a more gentle way, but it's not as taxing on you potentially. So yeah, even as children get older, they still need their attachment needs met. So it is still perfectly normal to continue to lie with her to sleep. But yes, if you wanted to do that in a more gentle way, and if you wanted her to eventually move to her own room, I would say still lie with her to help her get to sleep until she's fully asleep. And then you could go back to your own room if that works for you. But if she calls for you in the night, still go to her. Like there's ways to ensure that she knows like you're still with her and you'll still be there supporting her needs, even if she's not in the room with you.
And also the piece about the child maybe needing more connection before bedtime, before sleep time, whether or not you're going to lay with her. I'm wondering too, with this question, but also in general for our listeners, if a child is taking an exorbitantly long time to fall asleep, what would that maybe be? Would that be like not enough connection before, or overtired, or not quite tired enough? Would it be any of those, or?
That's where it could be all those things actually. And that's where you kind of have to do like trial and error. It could even actually be sensory needs as well. Like I find a child of a certain age, they really need a lot of outdoor time and playtime and physical activity. So one thing could be that maybe they didn't get enough of a physical activity that day. Or it could also be, I know this happens with my daughter, she still has to take a nap at daycare, but she doesn't really need it anymore. So then it takes a really long time for her to fall asleep. So yes, it could be under tired, but I've just kind of accepted it at this point. And she goes to bed later than what they say. She doesn't go to bed till 9 or 9:30, but I'm fine with that because then it doesn't take as long. So yeah, like adjusting the schedule to giving more time before bedtime could help as well.
Right.
So if you're feeling frustrated, it's taking a long time, I'd say, try like 15 minutes later and see if that helps.
Right. Beautiful. Well, I hope that your response to Alexa was helpful. I think that just reassuring her that it's normal and that, laying with her 4-year-old is still fine unless she is ready to shift that. Yes. And then having some kind of a gentle way of shifting that. And what was the term you used about sleep association. Was that it?
Yeah, sleep association.
Positive association.
Positive
No,
sleep. We want to create positive sleep association. So children have a positive association with going to sleep. So things like lying down with them to meet their attachment needs could lead to them feeling more comfortable and safe to fall asleep.
right. Perfect. Beautiful. And of course, I just was in the studio last week making a lullaby album. So I'm all about having a lullaby be the last thing that our children hear from our voices. So I always like to say that when we talk about sleep.
Yeah,
Yes.
I love singing.
Thanks to Amma. Before I never sang, but now I always sing. And when I sing to the smallest one, the older one helps me sing to her.
Love that so much. All right. So thank you so much for joining us today, Aileen. It's been a real treat to have you here. And we have a couple of questions we ask all our guests to get to know you a little better before we go. Take it, Susan.
All right. So our first question is, what's one thing that surprised you about becoming a parent?
That I thought I knew exactly how I would parent and what I would do, but you really don't know until you have kids. But also that there would be so much misinformation out there. Like you think that there's these like parenting experts that you should listen to, but really what I learned is the most important thing is to follow your own instincts as a parent.
That's amazing. That's perfect.
Great Serena are sisters in that.
Yeah.
All right. That's a great answer. Number 2 is, what does being a nurturing parent look like to you?
It looks like to me like meeting your child where they're at developmentally and having compassion for what is going on in their little world, and that they need us to take the lead as their caregiver, but in a way that always supports their emotions.
That is
Thank you.
definition of nurturing, I think. And then can you just please share with our listeners where they can find you, where they can get in contact with you, get your support, and all of that?
So the name of my business is Connected Slumber. So my website is connectedslumber.com. And on there, I have a list of like what all my different packages and services are. And I should mention, I always have a free, with any service, you can, if you want to make sure this approach works well for you and that we're a good match for each other, I always offer a free 15-minute phone call. Like you can first of all tell me like what sort of challenges you're going through, and then I can recommend to you, give you an idea as to what this approach is and recommend to you what I think would be the best package for you. So if you go on my website, you can set up your free phone call and book it there. Also, I have an Instagram page where I share lots of tips and suggestions. And that's also just Connected Slumber on Instagram. That's my hand, like just Connected Slumber is my handle. And also I have Facebook. If you don't have Instagram, I also have a Facebook page as well. Same thing, Connected Slumber, baby, toddler, sleep support. Those are 3 main ways that you can get in touch with me and find out more information about me.
Thank you. And all of those links will be in the show notes for you listeners out there.
We want you to go and follow Aileen at Connected Slumber. What a beautiful whole lot of information you shared with us today. Really, really appreciate your time. We appreciate your expertise really a lot. Thank you so much.
Yes. And I want to say thank you so much, because I've never seen somebody take a gentle approach to helping support parents who want to support their kids' sleep without having to train them. So thank you so much for putting yourself out there and doing this, because there are so many that are teaching us to sleep train. So thank you for being unique and doing this for other moms.
Yay, offering a different approach. Oh, thank goodness. It's been a real pleasure to meet you and to spend this time with you. And go ahead and follow Aileen and reach out to her through her website or on direct messaging on her Facebook or Instagram. All right.
Thank you both so much. I really am thankful for this opportunity. And your podcast is a great one. I feel like our approaches really align well, and I'm going to continue listening to your podcast as well. And thank you so much.
Awesome. Okay. Well, we love you. We love you, listeners. And thank you for being here with us today.
There's so much there, and I wish we can keep speaking with Aileen. She had so much good information. But the first gem that I want to share is that night wakings are normal. And I know when you become a mom, a popular question is your baby sleeping through the night? We get into this comparison kind of cycle, and that's not healthy because, as we know, night wakings are normal and it's their survival mechanism, and there should be no guilt around that. Number 2 is that bedtime represents a long period of separation. So if our kids are begging for another glass of water or to go back to the bathroom or to do this, it is because sleep represents a long time of separation with their parents, and we as parents are our kids' comfort. So whatever we can do to support them and gently ease that separation is gonna help them sleep better at night. Lastly is sleep associations, and kind of just learning that they're okay, like rocking your kids to sleep or breastfeeding to sleep. And that was a big place where I felt a lot of mom guilt, because I would breastfeed to sleep and I would always get that I'm getting them into a bad habit. And honestly, we all slept great. My first, my second, we all shared the bed and breastfed to sleep, and we all got a great night's rest. Except for now, while my daughter's teething and it hurts and she wants to be on all night. But I love how Aileen talks about adding sleep associations to remove some and make changes that fit both the parent and the child. So that was a whole concept that I never knew before, and that's a great tool. So I'm excited to see how me and my daughter can do this transition together. So thank you so much, Aileen. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing. Thank you. I just have to say thank you, because you truly have relieved so much mom guilt for me, and just knowing that I'm not the only one and that I'm answering my baby's cues. That makes me feel a lot better. So thanks. We hope that you all have a good night's rest tonight.
Hey, Mama.
Thank you for being here with us.
Okay, how cute was that? Thanks for being here with us. Hit subscribe to get notified.
And hey, did you get anything out of this episode? I know I did. Show some love and send it to your mama friends to bless their day too.
And before you run and change that diaper, take 5 seconds and leave us a review saying how much you love us. You'll be helping other mamas find us. Did you know that? And hopefully find answers to the questions that are keeping them awake at night.
And if you screenshot your review and DM it to us, you will be entered to win a 1-hour coaching call at a discounted price with Melissa.
I can't wait to chat with you. Come hang out with us in our Facebook group or on Instagram. Just click the links in the show notes, and you can direct message us anytime. We would love to chat with you.
We also have a buy me a coffee option for a fun way that you can support this podcast for just as much as you care to give. Just click the show support link in our show notes. Thank you. See you next week.
You